When most people think about protecting their brain as they get older, they usually focus on crossword puzzles, memory games, or staying mentally active. Those are all worthwhile habits. But after more than 35 years of caring for adults over 60, I've learned that one of the most important influences on brain health often happens before people ever go to bed. In fact, I've met many patients who were doing almost everything they believed was right. They exercised several times a week. They kept their blood pressure under control. They took their medications exactly as prescribed. Yet they were still noticing subtle changes that concerned them. They would tell me, "I can't remember names as quickly as I used to. I lose my train of thought more often. My thinking feels slower after dinner." Many assume this was simply an unavoidable part of getting older. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. One surprisingly common dinner habit may quietly work against your brain night after night without causing obvious symptoms. It doesn't produce immediate pain. It doesn't trigger an emergency. Instead, it slowly affects the conditions your brain depends on during its most important period of repair and recovery. The remarkable thing is that most people have never connected what happens at the dinner table with how well their brain functions the following morning. Your brain is one of the most energy-demanding organs in your body. Even while you're asleep, it continues performing essential work. It organizes memories, supports communication between nerve cells, regulates important hormones, and helps clear away normal metabolic waste that accumulates throughout the day. As we age, these overnight processes become even more valuable. At the same time, they also become more vulnerable to disruptions that younger adults may barely notice. The encouraging news is that once you understand what's happening inside your body, you may be able to make small, practical changes that better support long-term brain health. Stay with me because later I'll explain why one overlooked dinner mistake may interfere with your brain's overnight recovery, why adults over 65 are especially sensitive to it, and the simple evening habits many neurologists encourage to help support healthy cognitive aging. My name is Dr. William, and for more than 35 years, I've had the privilege of caring for older adults facing many of the health challenges that naturally become more common with age. One of the most rewarding parts of my work has been helping patients understand complicated medical research in language that actually makes sense. Medical journals are written for physicians. They often contain highly technical terminology and detailed scientific discussions that can feel overwhelming. My goal is different. I want to help adults over 60 understand how their bodies work so they can have informed conversations with their own healthcare providers and make thoughtful decisions about their daily habits. One thing I've learned over the years is that healthy aging isn't usually determined by one dramatic decision. It's often shaped by hundreds of small choices repeated day after day. Today's topic is a perfect example. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Tell me your city and state in the comments. I always enjoy seeing viewers from all across the country, and it's encouraging to know that so many people are committed to learning more about healthy aging. Now let me introduce you to someone I'll call Dorothy. Dorothy was 76 years old and had retired after spending nearly 40 years as a school librarian in Minnesota. She had always enjoyed cooking. Every evening, she prepared a generous dinner for herself and her husband. They believed they were eating well because they rarely skipped meals and always sat down together. But over the previous year, Dorothy had begun noticing subtle changes. She found herself forgetting why she'd walked into a room. She occasionally struggled to remember familiar names. After dinner, she often felt unusually sluggish and mentally foggy. She laughed about it at first. "I guess this is what 76 feels like." Her husband wasn't so sure. He noticed she seemed much sharper in the morning than she did during the evening. Eventually, they decided to schedule an appointment. When Dorothy came to see me, she was worried she might be developing dementia. That's an understandable fear. Memory changes are frightening, especially when you've always taken pride in staying mentally active. We performed a careful evaluation. We reviewed her medications. We discussed her sleep. We examined her medical history. We looked at her cardiovascular risk factors. Fortunately, there were no immediate signs suggesting a rapidly progressive neurological disease. But during our conversation, one detail caught my attention. I asked her to describe a typical evening. She smiled and said, "Doctor, dinner is my favorite meal of the day." She explained that breakfast was usually light, lunch was modest, dinner, however, was large. She often ate until she felt completely full. Afterward, she settled into a recliner, watched television for a couple of hours, and sometimes drifted off to sleep before finally heading to bed. To Dorothy, it seemed like the perfect way to end the day. But her evening routine raised several questions. Not because enjoying dinner is unhealthy, not because relaxation is harmful, but because timing, meal size, and what happens inside the body after eating become increasingly important as we grow older. Here's something many people don't realize. Your brain and your digestive system compete for resources after a large meal. When you eat dinner, especially a heavy one, your digestive system becomes extremely active. Blood flow increases to help process nutrients. Hormones are released to regulate blood sugar. Your stomach and intestines begin the complex work of breaking food down into usable energy. This is a completely normal process. The challenge is that aging changes how efficiently your body handles it. As we grow older, digestion generally slows. The body's response to glucose may become less efficient. Insulin sensitivity often changes. Stomach emptying may take longer than it once did. At the same time, many adults become less physically active during the evening. Instead of helping muscles use the incoming nutrients, they remain seated for several hours before going to bed. The result isn't usually dramatic, it's subtle. Some people feel sleepy. Others experience mental fog. Some wake up feeling less refreshed than expected. Most assume these experiences are simply part of getting older, but sometimes they're clues that the body's evening routine deserves a closer look. Research from institutions including the National Institutes of Health, Harvard Medical School, and the Mayo Clinic continues to explore the relationship between metabolism, sleep quality, and long-term brain health. While scientists are still learning exactly how these systems interact, one finding has become increasingly clear. The brain functions best when sleep, metabolism, and overall cardiovascular health work together rather than against one another. Think of your brain as the night shift manager in a busy factory. Once the day's work ends, the cleaning crews arrive. Equipment is inspected, supplies are organized, repairs begin. If unexpected deliveries keep arriving all night long, the workers have less opportunity to perform maintenance efficiently. Your body works in a surprisingly similar way. Large, late evening meals can change the environment in which your brain begins its overnight work. That doesn't mean dinner is dangerous. It means the way we eat dinner may matter more than many people realize, especially after 65. Most people don't notice these changes because they happen gradually. No alarm goes off. No pain appears. Instead, small differences accumulate over months and years. And that's exactly why understanding them can be so valuable. Most people think of sleep as a period of rest. They imagine the brain simply shutting down until morning. In reality, nothing could be further from the truth. While you're asleep, your brain is remarkably busy. Scientists have learned that sleep is one of the most active periods for maintenance and recovery. During the night, nerve cells reorganize information gathered throughout the day. Important memories are strengthened, while unnecessary information is gradually filtered away. Various repair processes take place, and the brain begins clearing away normal metabolic waste products that naturally build up while we're awake. Think of it like a city after midnight. During the day, the streets are crowded with traffic, construction crews can't work efficiently, and maintenance has to wait. But once traffic slows, repair crews move in. Roads are resurfaced, debris is removed, and everything is prepared for the next morning. Your brain works in much the same way, but here's something many people never consider. Those overnight maintenance crews depend on the conditions you create before bedtime. If your body is still working hard to digest a very large meal, regulate blood sugar, and process excess calories, your normal nighttime physiology may not be as balanced as it could be. This doesn't mean your brain suddenly stops repairing itself. It means the environment supporting those natural processes may become less favorable. That's why neurologists, sleep specialists, and metabolic researchers have become increasingly interested in what happens during the hours between dinner and bedtime. Now let's talk about the dinner mistake itself. It isn't one specific food. It isn't carbohydrates. It isn't fat. It isn't protein. The mistake is consistently eating a very large meal shortly before going to bed. Notice I said consistently. Everyone enjoys a holiday dinner or a special family celebration from time to time. That's not what concerns me. The concern is when an oversized evening meal becomes an everyday habit. As we grow older, our metabolism naturally changes. Muscle mass gradually declines unless we actively preserve it. The body's ability to regulate blood sugar often becomes less efficient. Hormonal signals involved in hunger and fullness may also change. Many adults become less active after dinner compared with earlier in the day. All of those factors mean your body may need more time to comfortably process a heavy evening meal than it did 20 or 30 years ago. Imagine asking an experienced maintenance crew to repair an office building overnight. Now imagine scheduling a massive furniture delivery at the exact same time. The workers can still do their jobs, but they'll have to divide their attention. Your body faces a similar balancing act. During digestion, blood flow naturally increases to the digestive organs. Hormones involved in metabolism become very active. Blood sugar rises after eating, followed by insulin release to help move glucose into cells. All of these are completely normal responses. However, when dinner is exceptionally large or eaten very close to bedtime, those processes may continue well into the hours when your body is preparing for sleep. Research published over the years in journals focusing on sleep medicine, metabolism, and neurology has explored how meal timing may influence sleep quality, glucose regulation, and overall metabolic health. While researchers continue to investigate the exact mechanisms, the general pattern has been consistent enough that many experts encourage avoiding large meals immediately before bedtime whenever possible. One reason is that sleep quality matters enormously for brain health. You may spend 8 hours in bed, but if your sleep is repeatedly interrupted or less restorative, your brain may not receive the same benefit as it would from uninterrupted, high-quality sleep. Most people don't realize that poor sleep isn't always obvious. You don't necessarily wake up completely exhausted. Sometimes the signs are subtle. You feel mentally slower during conversations. Names take longer to remember. You misplace everyday objects more often. You struggle to concentrate while reading. You blame yourself for becoming forgetful. In reality, many different factors can contribute to those experiences, and sleep quality is certainly one of them. But here's where it becomes especially important after 65. As we age, our sleep naturally becomes lighter. Many adults wake more easily during the night. Some develop conditions such as sleep apnea. Others wake to use the bathroom several times. Still, others experience chronic pain that interrupts deep sleep. If you add frequent, heavy, late evening meals to an already fragile sleep pattern, the overall effect may become more noticeable. This doesn't mean dinner causes dementia. The scientific evidence simply doesn't support making such a claim. Brain aging is influenced by many factors: genetics, blood pressure, physical activity, education, diabetes, smoking history, sleep, diet, cardiovascular health, social engagement. No single habit determines your future. Instead, neurologists think in terms of reducing cumulative risk over many years. According to the National Institutes of Health and Alzheimer's researchers around the world, protecting brain health involves supporting the entire body. Healthy blood vessels help nourish brain tissue. Healthy sleep supports memory. Healthy metabolism supports energy production inside brain cells. Healthy movement supports circulation. Everything is connected. If you're finding this discussion helpful, let me know in the comments. I enjoy hearing which health topics you'd like me to explain next, because chances are many other viewers have the very same questions. Now let me tell you about another patient. We'll call him Richard. Richard was 72 and had retired after decades as an accountant in North Carolina. He prided himself on eating only one real meal each day. Breakfast was little more than coffee. Lunch was often a sandwich. Dinner, however, became enormous. He'd arrive home hungry, eat a very large meal, enjoy dessert, and settle into his recliner within 15 minutes. For years, he assumed this routine was perfectly reasonable. Then he began noticing something that bothered him. Almost every evening, he felt mentally sluggish. Television programs became harder to follow. He found himself rereading the same newspaper article several times the next morning because he couldn't remember what he'd read the night before. Naturally, he became worried about his memory. During his evaluation, we reviewed many possible contributors. His neurological examination was reassuring. His medications were appropriate. What stood out most was his evening routine. Together, we made several modest changes rather than dramatic ones. He divided his food more evenly throughout the day. He reduced the size of his evening meal. He took a gentle 20-minute walk after dinner whenever the weather allowed. He avoided lying down immediately after eating. Several months later, he returned for a follow-up visit. The first thing he said made me smile. "Doctor, I didn't realize how much better I could feel after dinner." His memory hadn't become magically perfect. That wasn't the goal. But his evening mental fog had improved. His sleep became more refreshing, and he felt noticeably sharper during the day. His experience reminds us of something important. Sometimes improving brain health begins with supporting the body's normal daily rhythms rather than searching for a miracle solution. As we come to the final part of our discussion, I'd like to leave you with one reassuring thought. Your brain is remarkably resilient. Even after the age of 65, it continues adapting, learning, and responding to healthy habits. While we can't stop the aging process, we can often influence how well our brains function by supporting the systems they depend on every single day. That's why I encourage my patients to stop looking for one superfood or one miracle supplement. Healthy brain aging is rarely the result of one dramatic decision. Instead, it's built through consistent routines that support good sleep, stable metabolism, healthy circulation, regular movement, and meaningful mental engagement. So, let me share the evening routine I frequently recommend to older adults who want to give their brains the best possible environment for overnight recovery. Step 1 is to rethink the timing and size of dinner. Rather than saving most of your daily calories for the final meal of the day, consider distributing your food more evenly across breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You don't have to eat tiny meals. You simply want to avoid making dinner so large that your digestive system is still working at full speed when you're trying to fall asleep. Whenever possible, try to finish eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. This gives your body time to begin digestion before sleep naturally takes over. If you occasionally become hungry later in the evening, discuss appropriate options with your healthcare provider or registered dietitian, especially if you have diabetes or other medical conditions that affect meal planning. The goal isn't to go to bed hungry. The goal is to avoid overwhelming your body's normal nighttime rhythm. Step 2 is something many neurologists and sleep specialists encourage. Take a gentle walk after dinner. I'm not talking about vigorous exercise. For many adults over 65, especially those with arthritis or heart disease, a slow 10 to 20-minute walk is often more than enough. If the weather isn't pleasant, simply walking through your home or around an indoor shopping mall can also be helpful. Light movement after eating helps muscles begin using some of the incoming glucose, supports healthy circulation, and may improve digestion. It also creates a natural transition between eating and resting. One of my patients calls it his brain walk. He says it reminds him that he's walking not only for his heart, but also for his mind. I think that's a wonderful way to think about it. Step 3 is to create a bedtime environment that allows your brain to do its best work. Many people spend the final hour before sleep watching stressful news, scrolling endlessly on a phone, or answering emails. Your brain doesn't instantly switch from stimulation to deep restorative sleep. It needs time to slow down. Consider dimming the lights during the last hour before bed. Read a book. Listen to relaxing music. Practice gentle stretching. Spend a few quiet minutes talking with your spouse or writing down tomorrow's plans so they aren't racing through your mind once your head reaches the pillow. Simple routines like these help signal to your body that it's time to prepare for sleep. Step 4 is to protect the quality of your sleep. If you snore loudly, wake up gasping for air, feel exhausted despite spending enough time in bed, or your spouse notices pauses in your breathing, don't ignore those signs. According to the Mayo Clinic, the National Institutes of Health, and many sleep medicine specialists, obstructive sleep apnea becomes more common with age and can affect not only daytime energy, but also cardiovascular and cognitive health. Many people assume loud snoring is simply annoying. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a clue that deserves evaluation. Fortunately, sleep studies have become much more convenient than they were years ago, and effective treatments are available for many people. Step 5 may be the most important of all. Protect the health of your blood vessels. Your brain depends on an uninterrupted supply of oxygen and nutrients delivered through an extraordinary network of arteries and tiny capillaries. Conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, elevated cholesterol, smoking, and physical inactivity can gradually affect those blood vessels over many years. That's why neurologists often emphasize that what's good for your heart is also good for your brain. Managing blood pressure, following your prescribed treatment plan, staying physically active, eating a balanced diet, avoiding tobacco, maintaining a healthy weight when appropriate. These habits don't just support cardiovascular health, they also help protect the delicate circulation your brain relies upon every minute of every day. There's another habit I encourage almost every patient to adopt. Pay attention to patterns instead of isolated events. Everyone forgets a name occasionally. Everyone misplaces their keys once in a while. Those experiences alone usually aren't cause for alarm. What matters is whether changes become more frequent, begin interfering with daily life, or are noticed by family members as well. If you or someone close to you observes consistent changes in memory, language, judgment, or personality, don't simply assume it's normal aging. Schedule a medical evaluation. Many conditions that affect thinking, including medication side effects, vitamin deficiencies, thyroid disorders, depression, sleep disorders, and metabolic changes can sometimes be identified and treated. Early evaluation is one of the most valuable steps you can take. I've often had patients tell me, "Doctor, I was afraid to ask because I didn't want to hear bad news." I understand that fear, but avoiding questions rarely protects our health. Seeking answers often does. One of the greatest privileges of my career has been watching patients take control of their health after understanding what's happening inside their bodies. Richard, the retired accountant I mentioned earlier, didn't completely change his life overnight. He simply made thoughtful adjustments. He stopped eating enormous dinners. He started taking evening walks with his wife. He improved his bedtime routine. Over time, those small changes became effortless because they fit naturally into his daily life. Dorothy experienced something similar. She still enjoys cooking. She still gathers around the dinner table with her family. The difference is that she now thinks of dinner as the beginning of her brain's nighttime preparation rather than the final event of the day. She often smiles and says, "Doctor, I never realized my evening routine could affect tomorrow morning." That sentence has stayed with me because it captures something many people overlook. Healthy aging isn't only about today. It's about creating better tomorrows. Every healthy choice you make tonight becomes an investment in how you feel when you wake up. Before we finish, I'd like you to remember one final message. Your brain has carried your memories through decades of life. It has helped you build a career, raise a family, solve problems, celebrate milestones, and overcome challenges you probably never imagined when you were younger. It deserves thoughtful care. That care doesn't have to be complicated. It begins with simple, consistent habits repeated over months and years. No one can promise perfect memory. No physician can guarantee that aging won't bring challenges. But we do know that supporting healthy sleep, balanced nutrition, regular movement, and cardiovascular health gives your brain the best opportunity to continue serving you well for many years to come. If today's discussion helped you better understand the connection between your evening routine and long-term brain health, I'd be honored to have you subscribe. My goal is to bring you trustworthy, evidence-based health information in a way that's practical, reassuring, and easy to understand. Before you go, I'd like to ask you one question. What time do you usually eat dinner? And how long do you wait before going to bed? Share your routine in the comments. Your experience may encourage someone else to make one small change that supports a healthier brain for years to come. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take good care of yourself, stay curious about your health, and remember that the habits you choose tonight may help shape the health of your brain tomorrow.